One that I talked about recently is the influence of people like Andrew Tate on the up and coming generation, right? And whether that's positive or negative. And I use him as an example because he's polarizing, but there's a lot of Andrew Tate-esque people out there, right? So I guess that can be one. It's a very controversial topic.
Yeah. Oh man, Andrew Tate. I don't know about you guys, but my feed is usually business things, but I see a lot of Andrew Tate still. And if you look at the comments, there's like a war going on. Every time I look at the comments, there's like a war going on from, I don't know what they say. I'm still unfamiliar with the terms, red pill, blue pill. I have no idea what that is.
It's
But
the Matrix.
it's a matrix.
Yeah.
Talk to me about what the matrix is, bro.
So when it comes to Andrew Tate, there's it's kind of like politics, right? And it's crazy that there's red and blue when you talk about Andrew Tate, because there's people on one side or the other, and there's rarely people in the middle. People either love him or they hate him, right? They're super supporters or they hate his guts for one reason or another. The Matrix, red pill or blue pill, it's basically, as he calls him, do you want to be a normie or a brokey or whatever you want to say, and continue to be in the matrix, which is what we talk about getting out of, specifically Hunter. He gives people a lot of strategies to get out of that situation, which is working a job you don't like for a salary you're not satisfied with, for a boss that, necessarily isn't your friend, at a job that doesn't really drive you or change your life, right? And then the other side of things is breaking out of that spectrum and, doing things for yourself and setting up an income that far exceeds one that you would have made in corporate America and stuff like that. And it's crazy, man, because I feel like I'm one of the, and I could be totally wrong, one of the few that are in between. Like, I agree with some of the things he says, and then some of the things he says I know are just flat out to get attention from the media, and I'm like, nah, I don't agree with that, right? But I'm curious to hear Hunter's side of a topic like that.
Yeah, I think throughout history, and I mean, even still to this day with modern day, I think people are looking for purpose and they're
Mhm.
looking for belonging. They're looking for some sort of community to participate in, someone to follow, someone to basically lead and kind of educate them and these different things like that. And so you've seen obviously a big rise with like Andrew Tate of teaching some of these ideas, and we can argue whether or not they're like helping men achieve, like I said, their masculinity, helping them, be the entrepreneurs. Like I think there's so many obviously angles and facets to that. I agree with a lot with what you said, that I feel like I'm just kind of indifferent, right? There are things that I can look at and be like, yeah, I like agree and can see the value in that.
Mm-hmm.
Not always worded in ways that I feel like I agree with, but like when you kind of like rationally think through it, you're like, okay, I can see, how that makes sense. And there's other things like you said, like he totally spans out of. But I think really where the rise is that I think there's so many people, especially young men specifically, that they're looking for belonging, they're looking for purpose, they're looking for a vision and something to be able to follow. And the more powerful the voice, the more influential that is going to be on the younger crowds and the younger men and stuff like that. So those are my kind of views on it. That I think I don't know, that are kind of my views on it. So
No, man, I totally agree. And the polarizing stuff he says, yeah, whatever, man. People have said polarizing stuff forever to get clicks. The old saying, all publicity is good publicity, right?
sure.
Some of the shit he said when he was coming up, totally out of pocket. I don't agree with that. And when I say that I'm a supporter of his, people pull that right away and they're like, oh, so you're this label. And I'm not going to say these labels for different reasons, obviously. So you're this, or you're against this side, or you're this or that. And I'm like, no. Like, I think he's a good entrepreneurial masculine role model for men that, as you said, are searching for that, right?
Yeah.
Not necessarily the polarizing stuff, but the, breaking out of mental stigma and into, a quote unquote high value man and pursuing what you want to do in life, regardless of what others say. Those are the kind of things that I'm like, he says these things and it's against a lot of what society says. And that's where that matrix comes from, right? And I totally agree, man. I agree with everything you said.
Yeah. So like one like topic idea that he talked about that I really like a lot and I agree with, He goes, if you're wanting to start your own business, if you're wanting to start getting more money, right, into your bank account instead of it flowing out, he goes, you need to be so detail oriented and obsessive on where your money is going and why. So if you're buying Starbucks, why is that? What are the reasons why? Like, what has drawn you for them to basically take your money in exchange for that thing? And then he listed off a bunch of other things, right? Like these certain clothes, why are they taking your money, right? And he goes, what you can do is once you start learning those powers and seeing it, you realize that you can get involved and then get in the way of money flowing into towards you, because if you're providing a service, like you can find ways. You can just, he goes, if you just went and sat in a Starbucks and looked around and said, this could be better, I would do this differently, I feel like this would work better, I feel like, you know, he just gave that as an example. I think it'll be hard to beat Starbucks, but I think the idea makes a lot of sense. He goes, you can find ideas where you can be competitive in whatever the market is and have that start coming your way, which I thought was a great principle idea. Very business 101, I think foundational, very, very solid.
It's like flipping that to networking, you know, with Hunter doing, I know if it was you or JD that kind of got it, but you two are in the same organization. But it's like flipping the script to prospecting companies you could sell for, right? It's like thinking like a prospect, you know, how would you search? How would you do this differently? How would you approach a company? How would you find companies? And then having them talk back and forth and kind of like getting it, because I haven't heard Tate say that himself, but once you're, you know, explaining it, saying it at Starbucks and looking at, all right, so here's what successful people do, here's what could be different, all that stuff. It's very similar mindsets to networking and what I've learned from you guys.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, just one of my big values and characteristics I just think is so powerful is just being quick to observe and being an observer. Like, what do you see? What do you notice? Because the clues are all there. Like, I don't believe there's any secrets. There's just people that overlook, right? They're not paying attention. And so they miss it as it comes to that, you know, which is huge. So, but yeah, you're right. Like even with the networking, right? You can just reverse engineer that and find, you know, the right people if you're wanting to really look for them.
Find clues, look for logical and reasoning.
Real quick, before we move forward off the topic of him, there's a quote that he had that, or there's a little video he did on a podcast that I loved, because this is, you want to get controversial, David. I'm going to get controversial here. He talks about not believing in taking cold showers and reading a book every day and doing all these things. And he's like, these are just some random items some dude put on the list of how to become a millionaire. And now all these people are doing it just to do it. Right. He's like, I wake up at 9 a.m. He's like, I don't wake up early. I take hot baths. I don't like cold showers. He's like, I don't read. I watch videos. Like it's all these things that he listed off. And it's something that, as I have grown in this realm of the online sales, I feel pretty much the same way as him. Like I wake up at 9 a.m. I take sales calls or about, depends on the day, 8 to 9, take sales calls 10 to 11, depending on when I want to start my schedule. I don't take cold showers. I mean, I don't like a lot of the stuff that you see on these like Millionaire 101, like do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. I don't do those things. And obviously I'm not Andrew Tate, but it was cool to see somebody of his success kind of say, hey, all that's, you know, it is what it is, right? And I do know people that do it that are successful as well. I'm just not a big fan of the, oh, you're not in this place, you need to start taking cold showers. It's like, oh, thanks, dude. Immediate fix. I'll start taking cold showers.
For sure.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like it kind of like humanizes the process a little bit, because I know one celebrity that leaked his daily routine, Mark Wahlberg, and that went viral. It was like 2:30 a.m. wake up. I was like, ooh, that's when I go to bed.
He's on, bro, and some of those people, they're on the next level because of that, right? Because that's what their schedule needs. Like Dwayne Johnson, right? He works out like 2 times a day for 2 hours each day or something like, or 2 hours each time or something like that. Because his whole character is this massive. That's how he makes his millions of dollars. He plays that beefy guy in movies, right? And that's cool. It's good on him. But yeah, David, I think I mean I had another topic I wanted to talk about, but I'll let you take it from here, man, while I gather it. or Hunter. I mean, you can bring
Yeah.
something. I had
Yeah,
something
before we even
awesome.
jump on from that, I think that's what's so nice about, I mean, Andrew Tate, I think Alex Hormozy's talked about this as well, is what they're doing is they're challenging the applications and helping people realize what's the principle that's governing this application. So cold shower, right? That's an application. What's the principle that governs that? Doing things that are hard, that are uncomfortable, that you don't want to do, right? And so there are thousands of applications that would meet and fulfill that principle, right? That idea. And so that could be working out 2 times a day. That could be waking up at 2:30 in the morning. That could be whatever you're doing throughout your day, right? Even though you're waking up at 9 a.m., chance something in your day is helping you do that. You're doing things that are probably uncomfortable, maybe you don't want to do, but that still fulfill that principle, right? And so there's so many applications out there. Just find the ones that just work for you, right? Like test it out. If the cold showers, right, you end up doing it, it works for you. Awesome. If waking up early or later works for you, do it. You know what I mean? I think for so many people, they're looking for these hacks and it's like, oh, they don't get it. We need to understand there's principles that govern that infinite probably applications, right? That you can come up with, right? And I like how people like that are challenging that because there's 1,000 ways to skin a cat, they say, right? Or whatever. And, but yeah, there's these principles that govern that if you just followed the principle and you realized, wow, there's also applications that you do this, it would relieve a lot of heartache. It would relieve a lot of guilt. Like, oh, I'm not doing the cold showers. Oh, I'm not waking up when the birds crow, in the morning, all that stuff. You know what I mean?
No, man, I completely agree with you. And I think it could be taken even down to the minute tasks, right? So as an example, when I find myself not doing something I know I should do for whatever reason, and I catch myself, I do it. A very, very small example. And if you have one of these, I'm sure you've done this. I drink a ton of water. So I have a Brita filter. When I fill my bottle up, I want to refill the Brita pitcher so there's more water. Sometimes I'll just put it back in the fridge half full, right?
What's the Brita filter? What's that?
It's a filter. It's a pitcher that has a filter that filters water to purify it. Because I live in the country, David. I have well water. It's not the best water in the world, right? I'm not going to drink that straight out the tap. It needs to be filtered. Even small things like that, right? And I don't even do that every single time I catch myself, but I'm a believer that it can go down even to the tiniest of tasks, right?
Totally.
Because you're making yourself uncomfortable. Of course, I would rather spend the 30 seconds it takes to fill that up sitting on the couch or doing something that's not, that's lazy or easy, right? And that's I just love how you put that, Hunter. David, you need to clip that and put that out, bro, because that was cool.
With the applications. No,
that
was awesome.
Man.
That's the huge thing. Yeah, that's a huge framework that's helped me a lot. Is I use different words for it, but the way I've kind of secularized it is philosophies, principles, and then applications or practices that come out of that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of like there's these principles that govern these applications, right? There's infinite applications, there's fewer principles, and there's very few philosophies, right? So like a philosophy would be like give to get, right? There's principles that then fall in that, and then there's so many applications that you can come up and derive from that. Super has been helpful for me a lot. It's helped me realize that I do a lot more with a lot less because I understand that.
How does one kind of explore what's within their preference, I guess? Like would you recommend just going straight ham?
Yeah.
Just implementing all of it and then feel it out, or just slowly test things out?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, I think experimenting and tracking is huge. I just think that there's nothing that beats just the data and the results that come from it and just giving it a really solid try at whatever the thing is, right? I wouldn't try do too many things at once. And the reason why is because I won't be able to isolate which one of those 3 things worked. So then what happens is people will do like 4 or 5 things, like they'll add to their like morning routine, but maybe just one of those things is what really moved the needle for them. And now they've added all these things that just spend way more time, for them. And they haven't taken the time to like pinpoint on like, oh, it was this thing that moved the needle, so that then that extra time can be focused on other things that will really work for you. So that's just my view and my opinion of it. I feel like so many people just make these drastic changes, and And I think for me, I think one of the big points is of routine is how quickly can it get you into flow or your zone where you're working towards different things, right? So if you have like a 5-hour morning routine, right, it's like it's probably not that effective, like it's
I'll
probably
take a nap right after.
oh man, it's like that's like a whole part of your day, right? Like I want to think like what as quickly as possible is going to get me into the zone to do whatever it is I need to do, fulfill my purpose, reach my goals, right? So I can start putting that effort in. If that's cold shower, for some people it's coffee, some other people it's like some hot water and lemon, and then hitting the job or whatever your goal is, like sweet, you know what I mean? Like do that. If it's hitting the gym first thing in the morning, then it's doing your thing, right? Like whatever works, right? Like figure it out and
Yo,
out.
real quick, Hunter, something you said there, and I love it, man. That was the detriment to my most poor performing month in sales. I had like 4 back-to-back months of just bam, 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 bam. And I wanted to break through the ceiling that I was in. So I ended up attending some sales webinars and trainings, JD, Bill Walsh, this, and I added a ton of stuff into my process and then my performance, because I'd found something that works, but instead of doing this, seeing if it moved me above the needle, if it didn't, remove it, then add this, I added so much that it just, my close rate like dipped by 50%. I went from like 40 to 20, right? And everybody was like, dude, what the hell happened? And my sales manager at the time, I shared my process and framework I was going through. He's like, where'd you get all this shit? It's like, you were just like, none of this was in here last month. Take all that out, right? And that was just what you said there. It reminded me of that scenario you were talking about. But hey, real quick, we're talking about morning routines. This has been kind of a laid back episode. I'd be curious to, kind of understand what you guys do to get into the zone.
Yeah, go ahead, David. I've always been curious about yours, man. You're on a different side of the world, right? It's time zone differences are crazy. I've always been curious about yours.
My schedule is very fun. Every time I share my sleep schedule, people laugh. But I sleep from 3 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. So that's my sleep schedule. All I'm doing when I wake up is like, I need my tea, I work out, and I meditate, and then I'm off. Like that's the 3 things. Before I had, just like you said, like 7 different things, visualization. I was counting my blessings. I was writing down things. I was doing everything. But now I've just slimmed it down. It's now within meditation is pretty much my visualization. So it's all within like 1 30-minute, and then I'm off. And that takes like 90 minutes. And then I'm good to go. Very
awesome.
short.
Awesome. And then you just work until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's about it.
I love it. Yeah, mine's pretty simple. Whenever anyone's like, "Hey, what's your morning routine?" I say like wake up, work out, work. Like that's just typically like what my routine is. And so normally what I'll do is I'll wake up at and sometimes this gets thrown off a little bit, but normally I'll wake up at like 5 o'clock in the morning with my wife. We'll just go to the gym, go work out for an hour or whatever, and then I'll come home and then start basically like getting to work, right? And so kind of like do some things there. I'll work for a couple hours, and then I'll go do an afternoon run, go run for a while, come back and then shower, maybe eat a little something, and then once again just getting back to work and doing those things. So that's typically my process, and I'll go to bed I normally hit my sleep window around 10:30. That's when I can like feel it hit, and so I don't want to miss it. And so then I kind of conk out from there typically. So I'm one of those early morning people, which is fun.
Hey man, everybody has their own thing. I take about an hour. So I wake up, I chug whatever water I have left in my bottle from the night before, and I fill it up. I take that into this is going to sound kind of weird, so bear with me here. I don't have one of these close to where I am, but I take a full bottle of water. I take my energy. There's these carbonation, sugar-free like energy drinks that I drink that like aren't super duper terrible for you, but they're not good for you as well. But I drink them. I take those into the bathroom. and my bathroom is like a small little box, and my water gets super duper hot, and I basically simulate a sauna. I crank the shower up super fucking hot, and I sit in there and sweat for like 20 to 30 minutes. Then I get into the shower, rinse it all off, right? Do all that kind of stuff, get out, eat breakfast, and then I get on sales calls. And then I do my working out in short bursts between my calls. So typically I'll have like a 15 minute span. I'll go out there, I'll do a couple sets of weights. I might do some push-ups. I'll get on another call, same thing, boom, 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 take my dog for a walk. Just some basic stuff like that. That's what I have found that wakes me up the most. And it also, I don't know, man, there's nothing quite like sweating heavy and your heart pumping that it gets you going in the morning. And then I pair it with some good motivational videos on YouTube or like Spotify, kind of just get in that zone, right?
Yeah. Love it. Love it. Yeah. Obviously all of ours are so different and they just work for us and help us perform. And I think that's the huge thing. I wouldn't be like, man, Chance, you gotta change things up, man. It doesn't seem, you know what I mean? Like it's just crazy.
Absolutely. Hey, real quick, to take this kind of lax train and put it on a track of, a little bit of application here. I've got a question for you, Hunter, and it's one I don't think I asked on the last podcast. And because a lot of people that are watching our podcast are new to this industry, what would you say, because this is your expertise, if you will, what would you say is like the biggest hurdle or the biggest challenge for somebody starting out in the realm of networking? Like if you had to pick one, I know that's hard. You can do a couple, but like I think I know based on where I was, but I'm just curious from your perspective.
Yeah, great question. I think there's a lot of things that come down to it. For me, number one is just them getting their destination, their direction. I think that's just number one. It's just really like deciding like this is what I want, and then basically committing to it. And what I've realized about specifically, so I would say this would just revolve around goal setting, is what I've realized for a lot of people is goal setting drops into two parts. There's the choosing it, and then there's the committing it part. And I think those are two different things. So you choose basically the destination you want to go. And once you've chosen that, what you realize is there's really only one or maybe two paths max that are going to get you there. Then it just becomes a matter of commitment. Like, are you willing to do and sacrifice what is required in order to achieve this goal? And so I think that's what's number one, for a lot of people, because we can argue like, oh, I'm scared, I don't know what to do, I'm all worried about this. But the idea is if you're committed to making it work, no matter what it is, you're just going to do it. Doesn't matter if you're scared. Doesn't matter if you get rejected, right? Doesn't matter if you feel like an imposter. Doesn't matter if you suck right now, right? Like you're committed to doing this and making it work. Like, and you're in it for the long haul, and it's going to be able to work and make it happen. So I would say that number one is just like the goal, like committing to this destination, and then doing, what's required in order to make it work. I think that's the biggest thing I keep coming down to. I realize for a lot of people getting stumbling with that.
I love it, man.
Mic drop.
For real. I love it. I guess then follow-up question to that. And it's just dropping some free value here. You're talking about being specific on the goal. Yeah. Like somebody new in the industry who knows, we've all been on sales calls. Like if they have a vague goal, like what would be in the terms of like, and I want to hear this from like all of us here. Sure. How would you say somebody can get specific on those goals? I know how we do it in UCM. I printed the packet out. I did it. You don't have to share all of that, but like, what would you say if like you had to pick one best strategy to kind of specify on the goals? Like what would you say that is?
Yeah, great question. I might have to think it over just for a second. David, I don't know if you want to take a crack at it.
So I've developed because we're talking about like dream role, the objective, and that sort of stuff, right? So I actually have developed a worksheet like that I've taken from like just pure business advice and business strategies. And the way that it's structured is that the first is I talk about my objective. What is it that I'm looking to find out? It's like a synergistic partnership with like an entrepreneur that provides me a set of leads or provides me with like inbound calls to close. Like, what is it that I'm aiming for? And then I look at the reasoning. Why am I looking for this? To go remote, to become a provider, to achieve freedom, to make more money. It can be anything. Like your why is pretty much like the reasoning, and then I set a timeline. And then the other side is, all right, so let's focus on, because we got the vision now, we got the goal. So let's focus on the dream role. And on the dream role, it's like, who are you serving? And that can be a coach, an entrepreneur, a company. All right, that's great. But all right, so where is this coach in? Is it a real estate coach, a fitness coach? And it's kind of like coach, company, entrepreneur. All right, and what niches are they in? The second thing is, all right, so what are you enrolling your prospects into? Is it a transformation program? Is it a course, like a video format? All that kind of good stuff. Like, what type of offer is it? And then I look at the values of the entrepreneur. All right, so what are the company values? The reason I look at values first is because one of the qualifications on interviews that I do is alignment. I always want to find if there's alignment within me, the entrepreneur, the company. And then the next one is more of like, what's the impact that I'm providing with the program that I'm selling to the prospect? So more energy on calls, vitality, health, and the other ones are like, how much money are you making? And then with how much money you're making, you're pretty much reverse engineer how you're gonna do the math once you're filtering through companies. So that's like my process.
Love it. Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I kind of agree. I'm on a similar line. I like the idea of like, hey, who would be like awesome to sell for, or what would the thing that I'd be selling that I would just be over the moon about, right? I'd love to talk with about. I'd love to, like I'm even thinking about these things outside of even work. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot of clues there, and then you can kind of reverse engineer, right? And so for me, I feel like having some ideal top employers. So if it's like, man, I'd love to work for Tony Robbins, which we've had a UCM student, like you said, just land a job with selling on his team. Or if it's like, man, I want to be able to sell for Grant Cardone, or I want to be able to sell for, right, like some of these top, Russell Brunson, I want to be able to sell for, whoever that is, right? Because then what you can do is you can start talking to those people and realizing and saying like, you work for like the greatest company on earth. Like that's what I would want to do. This would be insane, right? In order to be able to get there. Like, what are some of the steps you took to get there? And they're like, well, I actually started in this industry. Shoot, I'm going to do that. Right? If this is the path that's going to get me there, I'm going to start working and being able to develop. So I think having, a top dream employer is great. I think niche or industry is also really solid. I think it's a great starting point, because I've asked some people, they're like, I'm like, for you, like, what's your goal in sales? And they're like, oh, I want to make 20K per month, right? 10K per month, or right, these perfectly round numbers, right? And the trouble is like, because it's so vague, they get ping ponged around. I'll tell you exactly what happens to them when they have this vague goal. What happens is they get slapped around by all these sales training programs that say, hey, make 10K per month in sales, make 20K per month in sales, right? They just get slapped around because their goal is so vague, right? And they just bounce around in between those. They pit stop there. Maybe they invest, maybe they don't. They hang around the groups, and it leads them to nowhere, right? But if they added one detail, like a niche or an industry, right? Like, hey, I'm interested in making 10K per month selling like aerospace, right? Stuff, or personal development or fitness. Now their brain opens up and saying, oh, what companies can I just search on Google that sell that thing? I can talk with the people there, right? Like just that one detail. I want to make 10K per month selling fitness, aerospace, and there's so many out there, right? Like now your brain opens up, and then you can just start searching and pursuing the companies instead of getting slapped around by these like sales training programs, right? So that's kind of like I said, my big feeling on that. Just that detail alone, I think, can get you so far.
Yeah, man, I've got a very basic strategy for myself. I call it and I've never shared this before, so it's going to be new for David. I call it the 5-year-old strategy, right?
Mm.
So when I have a goal, as an example, right now, I'm working towards getting into the coaching space, right? I'm partnering with somebody that's in my network that used to be my sales manager, who's got an offer that he's scaling that is going to bring me on as a coach, and he's going to pay me well. And it's like, why do I want to be a coach? Well, because, and I'm a big fan of flow charts, right? Because you can branch them off wherever. Well, because I'm not making, or because I want to make more money. Why? Because I'm not able to hit my goals right now. Why? Because of this. Why is that important? This. It's that. Why? Until you run out of whys, right? Get as specific as you can get on the goal, and that's really going to help you understand, if it's a goal in the first place, right? And then you're going to remind yourself of why you're doing it, and then, like you said, Hunter, you can reverse engineer it. Well, like, if why here, why here, why here, why there, well, I can reverse engineer. I need to do this here in order to get to here, in order to get to here. Right. And it's a very basic strategy. And I think it works really well, especially if you do like a flow chart type of format, because you can start at this and then you can branch off to this why and then this why and then get super specific and then just take it back. Right.
You can, yeah. And it doesn't even take long. You know what I mean?
No,
It really doesn't. If you just set the time aside to be able to figure it out, like within 5 minutes, right? Your strategy would get down, like I said, exactly what you're talking about.
100%.
They don't even think to ask those questions, and I think through it, like I said, it's so stupid simple. When you hear it, you're like, oh shoot, why haven't I done that? I thought of that. It's okay, just like start. Like just freaking do it.
You're doing it for yourself, so it's not annoying, right? You can't jump on a sales call and Hunter says 10K. Why? Because of this. Why? Because of this. Why? All right, dickhead, stop. Like, that's you're doing it for yourself. So you're like, okay, now why is this important to me? Because of this. Okay. And then why is that? Because of this. Okay. Why is this? Because of that. Right. And I love it because I do it, quite a bit, honestly, because I've got, as we all do, we've all got multiple goals, right? And I need to understand, where did that come from? Because sometimes you have a goal and you like wake up with it and you're like, what?
For sure.
Like, I need to understand this. So yeah, man. I feel like we've done a lot of question asking, Hunter. Before David wraps this up, do you have any questions for us, man?
Man, what is next for Sales Ramble TV? Like, what's the end goal? Like, what's the big vision? You know what I mean? Like, what's the hope, the desire? Like, are we hoping to have a podcast studio one day? Are we hoping to, are we hoping to get a green card and come to the US? Like, what is it? You know what I mean?
Hey, man, when we first started this, I brought up people like Joe Rogan, and David was like, we got a long ways to go until we're there. And I was like, bro, but that's where, like, we can work behind the scenes and build our personal brands to where Enrollment Game is something that is on that level, right? We have a podcast studio. We have tens of thousands of monthly listeners. And I know we're working on our own independent things. David's partnered with a very successful guy. He's building that out. I'm going to help soon. I'm partnering with somebody. I'm managing the sales team I'm on right now. Just hired 2 setters, looking to bring on a closer. Thinking I'm pulling, if he wants it, I think I'm pulling old Ethan Jackson from UCM to kind of ride shotgun with me and closing some deals from the setters. So for me, man, and David could speak for himself, but what I see for us right now is working on building our individuals so we can come together and kind of just like throw some kerosene on the fire that it takes us to the next level. Right.
Love it.
Yep. There's a lot of relationship building that's happening currently on both sides. Like it says, like we're partnering a lot. The vision with Sales Ramble TV first, we've already glided very sideways from that. But the vision with Sales Ramble TV, it was being like the bridge to sales people and business owners, because there's a lot of miscommunications happening like from both sides, like red flags over here, green flags. So we want to be that guy who interviewed business people, sales people. We have all the intel in the world, and we're able to provide that in like blog posts, whatever newsletters, just posting on social media about like the common mistakes or the common miscommunications, all that kind of stuff. It's still on the radar, but we're just having so much fun having guests like you, coming on, talk about networking, just providing value on all different aspects of sales.
Love it. That's awesome. Yeah, I've been kind of curious, so glad I should have probably just asked outside, but
Hey, no worries. David is a mogul on relationship building, and he's I won't say too much. He's working on a lot of B2B stuff behind the scenes. We've shifted our initial focus just based on what makes the most sense. And it's kind of something that David brought up that we agreed on. And we're kind of I don't want to say we're definitely not back to the drawing board, but we're building, right? We launched, and we were like, it was like the SpaceX launch that blew up like 20 miles in the air. It's kind of how we launched first, right? We lifted off, and then we blew up, and we had to come back down and reassess and be like, okay, hang on a second here. So that's where we are. But I mean, I fully believe in us, and I believe that David and I have some very great ideas and special stuff in the work, man.
Pumped to see it. Yeah.
To say the least, that we got acquisition deals in the pipeline.
It's pretty sick. That's pretty sick. Yeah, you guys are, you said, two good dudes, so I know lots of good things are going to come out of your guys' strategic partnership and working together on these things. So excited to see it.
Real quick, one last question. And I know David likes to keep these short. He has to edit these. So if you can do us a favor and keep this as short as possible, and I'll give my end here. What made you want to switch from closing to coaching? And I'll do mine first. Because I'm closing full-time, and my goal is to coach full-time. For me, I want to be more hands-on in the transformation. I've made the money, I've sold the product, but I don't get to be in that transformation. I don't get to help them go from point A to point B, right? And now I'm in this phase of my life where I'm seeking more fulfillment than a dollar sign, and I want to be able to, to have that day-to-day process of helping somebody go from, what we just said, barely having a goal, to smashing their goals out of the water, right? And that's where it comes from for me. And I'm just curious to hear where yours came from, because I know you said you sold for like 6 years, right? Something like that. Yeah.
So for me, I'm a teacher at heart, and what I'm obsessed about is how people learn and how to effectively teach. And so sales was an extension of that. I would teach people, right, and work with them there. And so coaching leans actually more naturally into me understanding more deeply about the learning process and understanding a little bit more about how to effectively teach and being able to explore both of those things. So that's been a huge thing for me.
I love that. Well, David, I know we've been going for 40 minutes, a little bit over what we like to do. I'll let you take us home, man.
Take us home. We'll just wave goodbye. And then
that's it.
I'll end the recording.
Love it.